Welcome back. This is the continuation of the topic we have started on price determination. Uh, in the first part, we have seen how market economy works. That is how the capitalist system works. We saw the role of consumers and producers interacting to determine the market price and how shocks, that is factors that shift in demand and supply when they happen unexpectedly, it causes the price to move move in one way or the other, and the equivalent quantity also changing in one way or the other. Though um markets are the market system is an efficient way of reallocating resources. It has some shortcomings. One of the shortcomings of the market system is market failure. Sometimes the market doesn't operate efficiently as we expect as far as resource allocation is concerned. But what we see sometimes is that the market is very poor in performing this allocative function. That is, we expect markets to allocate resources in such a way that goods will be produced at the right quantity needed by society. But what we see sometimes is that goods that are needed badly by society are rather produced in small quantities, less than optimal, whilst those that are not needed so much by society are rather produced in larger quantities. We also have a situation where resource allocation is done in such a way that some people tend to have so much, whilst others tend to have very little. So when we talk about market failure, we are referring to a situation where the market economy or the capitalist framework that is supposed to allocate resources in the economy fails to do that allocative job in the economy. So that is what we mean by market failure. Sometimes market for certain goods doesn't exist in the first place. What it means is that those goods cannot be traded. Because if there is no market, meaning there are no producers coming together to trade with the buyers. So in such a case, the market is non-existent. In some cases, the market exists, but there are a whole lot of imperfections in that market. So the market doesn't work to give us the desired results. So when we have such a situation, we refer to it as market failure. Now, when there is market failure, it cannot be left on its own that way forever. There is the need for something to be done. And what generally happens is that when markets fail to do their allocative function as expected, the government intervenes in the economy. So the government intervention in the economy becomes relevant when markets fail to allocate resources efficiently. What normally happens with government intervention? The government intervention can come in different forms. One way of government intervention is to influence the price because the prices allocate resources in the market economy. So one way by which the government can influence, can tackle problem issues of market failure is to influence the price, adjust the price of the commodity. We'll look at those things as we go along. So the key things we want to look at is What are the causes of market failure? There are many reasons why free market system fails to allocate economic resources efficiently and equitably. There are many of them, but I'll talk about only few here. The first one we'll consider is information asymmetry. See, when you the market system, the capitalist system assumes that when a good is put on the market, both the buyer and the seller have fair idea about the quality of the product. But in reality, that is not the case. The person who is selling the commodity tend to have more information than the person who is coming to buy. Because of this information asymmetry, symmetry means equal, but asymmetry means unequal. So unequal information, the buyer doesn't have the same information as the one who is selling. And because of this problem of information asymmetry, it can create a situation in a market where the market may throw away the good producers and the market will be left with only the bad commodities and their producers. It's a concept known as adverse selection. The market results in adverse selection because of this information asymmetry. Take for instance a used car market. When you go to the used car market, there are very good cars and there are very bad cars. The people who are coming to the market to sell the car have very good idea about the nature of their car, but those who are coming to buy do not have the fair idea about the true nature of the vehicles. So those who have very good cars will be willing to sell the cars at a higher price, and those who have bad cars will also the bad cars will also have a lower price. What I mean is that those who have good cars in the used car market, those cars should attract higher prices, and those with a bad ones should attract lower prices. But because the consumers don't have any idea about the quality of the car, what they do is to assume that whatever they are coming to buy has a 50% chance of being good or bad. Because of that, when they go to the used car market, they are not ready to pay the the price that the very good cars will attract. So what happens then is that if you are selling a good product and people are not willing to pay the right price to get the product, how it means that you produce and nobody will buy, or you bring a product to the market and nobody will buy. So you will be forced to what? Stop producing. So the good person will exit the market whilst the bad producers will remain in the market. Now, when a good producers exit, what will happen is that only few producers will be there, and the few producers that are there are not even going to bring the best quality items to the market. So that will create some kind of shortage. That is, we expect commodities will be produced in certain quantity and brought to the market, but because of this problem of information asymmetry, the good producers will exit the market and it's only be left with the bad producers. So when that happens and people know that the product that is being brought to the market is of bad quality, at the end of the day they can decide not to buy the product, or the quantity they will buy will be very small, and that can even force the few bad producers in the market to even stop production altogether, and so the market for that commodity can collapse. Uh, so there is a way of solving this problem of information asymmetry. One of them is warranty. So if I'm selling a product and I want to assure you that what you are coming to buy is of a good quality, I give you a warranty. And if when I give you warranty, you'll be willing to pay the right price. But it is not everybody who, because somebody is buying a product, let's say from Japan and bringing it to Ghana to use. What is the guarantee that when the product has a problem, it can be shipped back to the company? Or you go to Accra to buy a product, then you are using it in whole. If there's a problem, what is the cost of traveling back to Accra? And so it has its own problem. But one of the ways by which the market has come out with a solution is through uh, warranty. Another one is branding. If you are able to brand your product, you can always be traced. So those are few ways by which information problem of information asymmetry can be handled to some extent. Then another cause of market failure is monopoly power. Market economies are supposed to operate in a way that nobody, be it a buyer or a seller, can independently control the price of the commodity, because it's supposed to be so there is no, we don't expect uh, somebody with or a player with market power in that market. That is, nobody should be able to independently influence the price of the commodity. But we have situations where monopolies exist in the market, meaning the person is the only producer and seller of that item. Because it's the only person who is producing and selling in that market, they can sometimes restrict how much they produce in order to force price of the commodity up. Or sometimes they will deliberately increase the price. And once the price is increased, quantity demanded will decrease. So instead of society consuming a larger amount of the commodity because of monopoly power, they are consuming less amount. Or the monopoly by itself, instead of producing the commodity in large quantities for the benefit of society, it will deliberately restrict the production of that item. Restricting the production of that item means those resources going to other uses, which shouldn't have been the case. So monopoly power can also create market failure. And one way of solving uh, market failure as a result of monopoly power is regulation. So the government will make laws to regulate how monopolies operate. So in Ghana, there are a lot of public monopolies like ECG or Ghana Water. They don't set their own prices. But we have a regulator, which is PURC, that help them in determining how much you should pay for electricity and water. So monopoly power can create market failure because monopolies can restrict outputs in order to force prices up. And when prices are too high, people cannot buy much. The third cause of market failure is what we call public goods, or over here I term it public nature of some goods. When you go to the market and buy goods, the goods we normally buy are private goods, meaning when I consume a unit of it, another person cannot consume the same thing. Let's say you go to the market to buy a laptop. When you are using that laptop, no other person can use it. So so there is some kind of competition for the use of the good. So that is one of the attributes of a private good. But that is not the case when it comes to public goods. Public goods are such that when you consume an amount of the good and another person also consumes it, there is no interference with respect to how much each person will get. Let's say I've spent money to construct a road to my house, which is at the outskirts of a town. When others use the road, it doesn't deprive me from using the road. I use it, they also use it. So there is no competition for the use of the road. The fact that they are using it doesn't deprive me of using it. We can all use it at the same time and get our satisfaction. That is one of the problems with public goods. Meaning, if I spend my money to provide a facility, other people can use it without paying for it. And because of this problem of one's inability to prevent people who have not paid for a commodity to use it free of charge, has created a situation where nobody will be willing to spend his money to do that. For instance, if let's say let's say I have a house at the outskirts of a town and there is no public roads to that place. Now, those of us who are living there under normal circumstances should contribute money and construct the road to the place. But because if one individual construct the roads, he cannot prevent other people from using it, and when other people use it, it will also not deny him its use. Some people will deliberately refuse to contribute money, but when others do it, they want to enjoy because nobody is a fool. Everybody, no, nobody will want to pay for the construction of the road, even though the road is good for all of us. But because if one person pays to construct it, he cannot prevent other people from using it. It becomes a problem. So commodities with such characteristics are usually not produced in the right quantity. So what usually happens is that a government has to come in sometimes and provide such goods. So you see education, public education, when the government realizes that the private sector will not provide education to such certain segment of society, because of the cost involved, the government takes up that challenge. Another one is security. So these are all. So public goods. This is their problem because there are some people who want to enjoy it without paying for it. The people we call free riders. They when others do it, they will enjoy, but they will not be willing to pay for that thing to be produced. And because nobody is a fool, everybody will not want to do it, even though it is needed by society. So you see that in such a situation, the commodity will be produced in smaller quantity than expected. So because of the fact that it will be produced in smaller quantity, the government has to come in and fill the gap by providing those. That is why you see the government constructing roads, providing education, and all this. It's all because the market is not able to produce those goods in the right quantity because of some of these problems of public goods. So you see, public goods are such that people cannot have exclusive right to the use of those goods. And once you cannot have an exclusive right to the use of the good, it becomes very difficult to spend money to produce it. Because if you sacrifice yours and do it, other people will enjoy it for free. So we can solve market failure through those means, but we can also use the market to solve some of the market failure problems. In using the market to solve market failure problem, what happens is that the government will attempt to tamper with the price of the goods in the market. Or where the market don't exist, the government will create one and try to influence the price in order to allocate resources more equitably in the economy. There are two approaches the government can use in influencing the price of the commodity. One is to use direct method. That is, the government can decide to set the price by itself, or the government can use an indirect method. So let's look at the direct method the government can use. Uh, the direct method the government uses is what we call price control. That is, the government doesn't allow the market system to determine the price of the commodity, but rather the government fixes the price and maintains those prices. What it means is that if there is a government approved price for a commodity, either the government will say you can buy the commodity at this price, you can sell the commodity at this price or above in some situations. Others too, you can sell the commodity at a particular price or below. So we have these two situations. The reason is that when the government feels that the commodity is too expensive for consumers, then the government will set the price below the market price. But when the government feels that people who are producing are not earning much, the price they are receiving is too low, the government can also set the price higher than the market price. So we have two main price controls. So as I said, the price control is the direct method the government uses to fix the price of the commodity. So the government intervenes in the market by fixing the price. So we have the price ceiling and the price ceiling is the same as maximum price control. This is the way you have to link the price ceiling to the maximum price control. If you are in a room, the highest you can go is the ceiling. So you either get to the ceiling and come down. So the ceiling is the highest point you can go. So that is the maximum price control. Then you also have minimum price control. Minimum, that is the lowest you can go. And if you are on the floor, it's either you are there or you go up. So the floor becomes the lowest point you can. So either you are at the floor or up. The ceiling up or down. So when we talk about let's talk about maximum price control, how it works. The Under normal market situation, the demand and supply will determine the price at P naught and the quantity will be Q naught. But sometimes the government can feel that this price is too high for the consumers. So the government wants the price to be fixed at PC. So the government will come out with a price control, which is the price ceiling, which is the maximum you can sell and buy the product. You can buy the product at PC or below, but you cannot sell the commodity or buy the commodity above the PC. So it is at PC or below, and that is what is the maximum price control. There are some examples of maximum price control. One is rent control. I'll show how it works in a few minutes. Then we can also talk about pricing of certain petroleum products such as premix. That is the fuel used by fishermen. Premix fuel is usually subsidized by the government. So the price is controlled by the government. You cannot sell it at above certain price. You cannot sell it closer to the market price. The government will tell you either sell it at this price or below. Then you can also talk about school fees in public institutions. And when you go to private universities, for instance, the school fees they pay they are quite high. the school fees are quite high compared to public ones. Why? Because the government is wants to make education accessible to a lot of people. They tend to influence the price consumers of education must pay. So those are some of the examples of maximum price control. So again, the maximum price control is set below the equivalent price. That is the highest the sellers can sell the commodity. It is at that price or below. So the price is the whole idea is to ensure that the price doesn't get closer to the equilibrium price. They want to prevent the price from moving towards equilibrium. Now, let's see how this price control works. So in the market situation where there is no price control, the price of the commodity is P naught and the quantity consumed and produced is Q naught. But when there is intervention by the government by way of maximum price control at PC, you realize that quantity supplied will be QS. Quantity supplied will be QS. But quantity demanded, because when the price falls, producers are discouraged. So they will reduce their production from Q naught to QS. But for the consumers, because the commodity has become cheaper, they will be encouraged to increase their demand for the commodity. So they will increase their demand from Q naught to QD. So at PC, you realize that quantity supplied is QS, but quantity demanded is QD. There is a problem of demand exceeding supply. So shortage will happen. So if you interfere with the market this way in an attempt to solve a problem, if the government feels the price of the commodity is too high, the end result is that a shortage will be created in that market. So for this price control to work, the government should be in a position to fill the gap. If the government fails to fill the gap, then this price control will not work. The reason being that some people will refuse to offer their products for sale. Take for instance rent control. If the equivalent rent the house owners are willing to rent out their place is peanuts and the government brings it to PC, what will happen is that many people will not want to offer their accommodation for rental. So the supply of accommodation will decrease to QS. It will decrease from Q naught to QS. And because it has become cheaper, a lot of people now want to rent a place. Even people who should have been pairing with others to rent a place, they may now want to get their own place because it's cheaper. So it will increase demand. In this situation, because there is shortage and people will want to get accommodation at all cost, what will happen is that it will create black market activities. That is, people will do a lot of transactions without documenting it. It will not be official, meaning you can go and rent a place from somebody, the person will not give you receipts, the person will not document the transaction between the two because one day it could be used as an evidence against him. So this creates some kind of black market. That's what we call black market. Now, when there is this black market because of the shortage, people now have to go and see this landlord secretly because officially you cannot rent above PC. But here is the case: you need the accommodation, you have the money, so secretly you go to the landlord behind the scene or in the night, and you negotiate with him. But because there is shortage in the market, the landlord will also not be ready to even take a peanut price. Rather, the price will go up if you project the the line from QS, that is what is being supplied, and you project it all the way to touch the demand curve up there, and you project it to the price as you see that the price the person will be taking now for offering that house will be higher than the initial equilibrium, because demand has exceeded supply. So this price controls, that is how they work. Because if you want to control the market, at the end of the day, you will be worsening the case unless the government is ready to fill the gap. If you are not ready to fill the gap, then it will hardly work. And this kind of system is associated with favoritism, because this will create a shortage. Before you rent a place to somebody, you must know the person, or somebody has to bring somebody to you, and all those things. So it creates favoritism, because the thing is limited in supply. So you have to give it to people you know. Then it can also create corruption, because these systems have to be policed by somebody. This price control, and the very person that you have asked to come and police it is the one who is going to collect bribe. So it's also subject to. There are other disadvantages, and there are perceived advantages. In theory, they look nice, but in practice, they really don't work. So you can read from the slides the advantages and disadvantages. We quickly look at the other price control, which we call price floors. So price floors are set in such a way that you sell the commodity at that price or above. If you are on the ground, you can only come up. So at that price or above. An example is minimum wage. See, the whole idea is that the government feels the producers or suppliers are not receiving enough from what they are supplying. So let's say the equivalent price P naught is too low. So the government wants a price that is higher. So the government will set the price control at PC. So over here, the consumer, the seller will sell the commodity at PC and above. You cannot move below PC. If you move towards the equilibrium, you are in trouble. By the law, you can only set at PC or above. And we can have some examples of minimum price control. For instance, minimum wage. It's an example of a minimum price control. Then we can also talk about the price of cocoa. The government will always come out with a price for, you can buy it at that price or above, but you cannot buy it below that price. So it also has its advantages and disadvantages, which you can read from the slide that I'll be sending. Now let's see how these things work in practice. Let's use the case of a minimum wage. We illustrate the two. The case of minimum wage. If you fix a minimum, assuming this is the labor market, where there is a supply, you have the supply of labor, then demand for labor. In equilibrium, the wage will be P naught, that's the price of labor, and in that at that price, the number of people who will be willing to work and the number of people the firms will be willing to employ will be Q naught. But if the government feels that this wage is too low because of unemployment and it fixes it at PC, what will happen is that the quantity demanded will drop from Q naught to QD, because the price is high. The higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. So the price will fall. The quantity demanded will fall from Q naught to QD. But what do you think is happening to the price? Now the government has raised the price of labor. So more people will now be willing to work. So the supply of labor will increase from quantity supplied of labor will increase from Q naught to QS when the price is PC. Currently, you can see that quantity supplied is more than what quantity demanded. That is the number of people that employers want to take is less than what the number of people who are willing to work. So fixing and having this kind of policy can create unemployment. And then one of the explanations of unemployment is high wages. When high wages are above the equilibrium, to create unemployment, because consumers of labor, that is, employers will reduce their demand while supply for labor will increase. You can so if for this thing to work, then the government should be ready to employ the surplus labor that is coming out of the system. If not, it will not work. In practice, because even in Ghana here, even though you have minimum wage, there are a lot of people who are earning below the minimum wage because economically, if you force certain people to pay those kind of price, then it's better they don't employ the person in the first place. So it will create unemployment. We can also use the cocoa situation to analyze the same problem. For instance, if the cocoa price is peanuts, but the government feels that it's too low for the consumer, so it sets it at PC, the same problem will happen. Consumers will reduce their demand for cocoa. So those who process cocoa will see the cocoa to be too expensive, so they'll reduce their demand. So this will move cocoa demand from Q naught to QD. Whilst cocoa supply, because the price has gone up, farmers will be happy and will produce more. People who were previously not producing cocoa want to produce now. So farmers will also expand their farm in order to get more money. So it will increase cocoa quantity supply of cocoa from Q naught to QS. Now you can see that quantity demanded of cocoa is less than what quantity supply. So the shortage is created over here. Now, if you want this system to work, then the government should be ready to buy the surplus cocoa. That is the only way that the price can be at PC. Because in the real world situation, let's say you are a farmer with a lot of children, and you have produced your commodity, and it is there. People are willing to buy it at a lower price, but the government say no, sell it only at a certain price. If you are in the shoes of those producers, what to do? You need money. You need to feed your people, and you have the product. So the shortage will rather force the price of the commodity to come down, and the farmers may end up selling the commodity even below the initial price level, which is peanut. So you see, for this kind of thing to work, the government should be able to buy the surplus, and the surplus is the difference between QS and QD. That's the quantity. Then the government should be able to pay the price from zero to PC. So that is how much the government is going to spend. And if you live in a country where the government is struggling with money, the government itself doesn't have money, where is the government going to get money to buy this surplus? So those are some of the small problems that come with attempting to directly interfere with the market. Because of the problems that come with direct interference with the price, many governments don't want to get into that kind of direct influence or direct determination of the price of the commodity. What they do rather is to use taxes and subsidies to indirectly influence the price of the. You see, in the first case, the action of the government to influence the price is direct. From today, this is the price at which you have to sell this item. It's direct interference. But the government can use taxes and subsidies to influence the price of the item without directly interfering with it. So we'll look at taxes and later look at subsidies. So taxes are hot. They are like levies imposed on goods, uh, and when you are buying the product, you compulsorily transfer some money to the government. So the government can impose, let's say, 1 cedi on every bottle of akpetishi. So anytime you are going to buy one bottle of akpetishi, you are also paying 1 Ghana cedis as a tax. So in using taxes to influence the price of the commodity, and for that matter, how much to produce and consume. The government can either tax the final product or tax the raw material that are used in producing the commodity. The two approaches will produce the same result, even though the mechanisms to that result will differ. When it comes to the raw materials, when you impose a tax on the raw materials, the cost of production will go higher. Then, as the cost of production goes higher, the profitability of the business will also fall. So, when see, people are in business to make profit and make maximum profit. So, if that maximum profit is going to be reduced, then the incentive to produce more will also decrease. So, when a tax is imposed on the raw material used in the production, that will cause the supply of the commodity to fall. So as you can see here, when the tax is imposed on the raw materials, it decreases supply. So the supply curve shifts to the left from S0 to ST. That is what happens because the people will not want to produce more. Now, if the price remains at P0, what will happen is that quantity supplied will be less than Q1. That is, the quantity supplied will be the intersection of the supply curve, the new supply curve ST, and the P0. If you draw the meeting point there, if you drop it, if you project it to the quantity axis, that will be the quantity that will be supplied when the price is P0. But the quantity that will be demanded is at P0 is Q0, the original, the equilibrium quantity. Now, at that price P0, because the quantity supplied has decreased, there is going to be shortage in the market, and that shortage will begin to push the price of the commodity up. So when the price goes up, then the producers will be encouraged to produce more. But as the price goes up, the consumers will be discouraged and they'll consume less. So the shortage will be narrowed. But it may not be eliminated immediately. So as long as there is shortage, it will exert further pressure on the price to rise. And as the price rises, producers are encouraged to produce more, while consumers decrease their consumption. So this will continue until we reach point E1, where the new supply curve intersects the old demand curve, and the new price is P1 and the equilibrium quantity is Q1. So in effect, the tax has caused the equilibrium quantity of the commodity to decrease from Q0 to Q1, and the price has increased from P0 to P1. Generally, taxes are used this way to discourage overproduction of certain commodities. For instance, alcohol. So drinking alcohol or cigarettes can be very harmful to your health, and it can also increase public expenditure on health because of the consumption of those things, the diseases that come with it. So if the government wants to discourage people from using it, they impose heavy taxes on such products so that a lot of it will not be. So you see that the production and consumption will decrease from Q0 to Q1. And that you can achieve that only when the price of the commodity become more expensive through the tax. So it makes the price of the commodity to move from P0 to P1. We can also look at the situation where the government imposed the tax directly on the final product. In that case, what will happen is that the price of the commodity will shift from P0 to P1. Because the price has increased, consumers will decrease their demand. So the demand will fall from Q0 to Q1. So as a producer, you are producing and selling an item, and because of the tax, people have reduced their demand for the product. What do? You also respond by cutting down on your production. So cutting down the production will shift the supply curve from S0 to ST. That is to shift it to the left. And when that happens, the new equilibrium will be established at point E1, where the new price is higher than the initial equilibrium price, and the equilibrium quantity is lower than that of the initial equilibrium quantity. Then we can use, just as we use some quantitative techniques in solving equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity when there is no tax. We can also use this some small mathematics to solve for equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity when there is imposition of a specific tax, that is tax per each unit sold. And so we'll use these equations to solve that. So we have the demand function QD is equal to alpha minus beta P star. That's equation 1. The supply function QS is equal to gamma plus theta PS. That's equation 2. But look closely at this equation. If you look at equation 1, the P star is the price the consumer is paying for the commodity he's buying. But that price, the entire price will not come to the consumer because of the tax the government has imposed on it. So the producer is willing to produce based on the price he will receive from the consumer minus the tax the government has imposed, because he has to deduct, he has to pay the government. Once the government has imposed a tax on a commodity and you sell that commodity, you have to remove the tax and give it to the government. So what the producer will actually be left with is P star minus T. That is what is the PS. So the PS in the supply function is defined as P star minus T, because when you receive the price paid by the consumer, you have to subtract the tax from it. What is left is what belongs to you. And producers will produce based on what belongs to them, what they will get at the end of the day. So we have that situation. Now, if you want to solve the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity, then we need to substitute P star minus T in place of PS in equation 2. Because if as you look at the equation, in the equations, we have 3 variables: Q, P star, PS. Meanwhile, you have only 2 equations, so you cannot solve it. You need at least 3 equations for 3 unknowns. But here you will have 3 unknowns with 2 equations. You cannot solve it simultaneously. So what you do is to substitute for the PS, you substitute P star minus T. And when you do that, you get equation 3. Now you can solve equation 1 and equation 3 simultaneously to get the P star and the equilibrium quantity. Now, for you to get the equilibrium price, you know that in equilibrium, quantity supplied is equal to quantity demanded. So you equate the equation 1 to equation 3. And when you do that, you have this expression and you expand. You expand the left side and group the like terms together. That is, you solve for P. You make P the P star the subject, And when you do that, you solve it, you have this equation 4. So this is the price the consumer is paying. It is not the price the producer is going to receive. It is the price the consumer is paying for the commodity at equilibrium. So to obtain the equilibrium quantity, what we have to do is to substitute this equation 4 into equation 1, because the P star can only be found in equation 1. In equation 2, as we see it directly it is not, unless you subtract the tax from it. So for you to solve the equilibrium quantity, you put equation 4 P star into equation 1, and when you do that, you solve it as so this is equation 1. QD is equal to alpha minus beta P star, but we know P star, which is the equilibrium price paid by the consumer, to be this. So you substitute this into the demand function, and when you solve it, you have equation 5. So that is the equilibrium price. That's the equilibrium quantity. That is the equilibrium quantity when the tax is imposed on the good. When there is no tax on the good, that is T is equal to 0, the P star becomes alpha minus gamma over beta plus theta. The second term will vanish. The same way, when there is no tax, equilibrium quantity will be alpha theta plus beta gamma all over beta plus theta. The T, the second term in equation 5 will vanish to become 0. But because of the imposition of the tax, you can see that the P star is equal to a term plus another with the tax, and the one with the tax is a positive term, so it will increase the price. So the P star is higher than the equilibrium price because it is a positive number that is being added to it. But what about the equilibrium quantity? You can see that the equilibrium quantity has a first term, and you have another term which is subtracting from it. So the QD will become smaller because something is being taken away from the a no tax situation. So in equation 5, the quantity there will be smaller because of the tax. But but P star will be larger. So the consumers will pay higher price but get lower quantity consumed. We can also solve for the price received by the producer. The producer, receives the price paid by the consumer minus the tax the government has imposed on the commodity. And we know the equilibrium P star to be this. So if you substitute it into PS equation, we'll have PS will be equal to alpha minus gamma all over beta plus theta plus theta t over beta plus theta minus t. So if you simplify this expression, you have the price PS is equal to alpha minus gamma over beta plus theta minus beta over beta plus theta t. So this result, what it's telling us is that the consumer, a portion of it is paying a portion of the the equilibrium price the consumer receives when there is no tax is alpha minus gamma all over beta plus theta. But because a tax has been introduced, a portion of the consumer's income will go into paying the tax, because the consumer will not be able to shift the entire tax to the consumer. So the producer will suffer some of his profit to pay the tax. So the price the producer will receive when the commodity is taxed will be lower compared to when the commodity is not taxed. So again, we can substitute this equilibrium PS into the supply function, that is equation 2. When we put the PS into equation 2, we can solve for the equilibrium quantity from that place too. And when you compare it to if the first one we solve, the two will be the same. Again, I'm saying that you put PS into equation 2. The equilibrium PS, that is, you put equation 6, the equilibrium value here, into equation 2. And when you solve it, you get the equilibrium quantity. And you see that the equilibrium quantity you get from solving, substituting into the first one, and the one you obtain from substituting this PS into the second equation, it will all give you the same result. The last one we'll look at is subsidy. Subsidies are the exact opposite of taxes. So what happens is that instead of let's say a commodity is being sold for 10 cedis, then the government will say I'll pay 5 cedis out of it for you. So you should go to the market, sell the commodity to the people at 5 cedis. After selling the commodity to them, come for the remainder of the money. So that is how subsidies work. So the government can decide to subsidize the final product or the raw materials used in producing the commodity. At the end of the day, they will produce the same results. Subsidies generally will lead to more production because the price consumers pay will be lower. And once the price the consumer is paying is lower, he will be able to consume more. And the producers will respond by producing what the market wants. The adjustment mechanism from the subsidy on the final product and that on the raw materials for production are not the same, but the eventual outcome is the same. But the mechanisms that the process will go through to produce the final result will not be the same. Let's take the case of imposition of the tax the subsidy on raw materials. Here, the initial market situation without subsidy, the equivalent price will be P naught and the equivalent quantity will be Q naught. That is the situation where there is no subsidy. So we have the original demand curve or the initial demand curve D naught, then original supply curve S naught. But when the commodity is subsidized, it becomes cheaper for the consumer. So what the consumer will do, when the commodity is subsidized, the final product is subsidized. The price will drop from P0 to P1 immediately. But because the price has dropped, consumers will be willing to buy more. So the equivalent quantity will move from Q0 to Q1. What is going to happen over here is that because the demand for the commodity has increased, producers will also increase their supply. So supply will increase from S0 to S1 in order to meet demand. So at the end of the day, equivalent price compared to the initial one has dropped, but the equivalent quantity consumed has increased. We can apply these concepts in, let's say, education. Initial quantity is the price people have to pay for education, and the quantity number of people who are going to school. By a subsidy, education becomes cheaper. So a lot more people can now access education. So we have like the free SHS. The price of education becomes cheaper, then a lot more people can now get access to education. So the current quantity will move from Q0 Q1. We can also look at the situation where the raw material is subsidized, like a fertilizer subsidy. What that will mean is that the supply curve will shift to the right from S0 to SS will shift to the right. If the initial price is maintained at P0, quantity demanded will be Q0, but the quantity supplied will be higher than Q1. If you if you project the P0 all the way to touch the new supply curve and you draw it down, you project it to the quantity axis, you realize that the quantity that will be supplied when the price is still at the initial level with the subsidy will be higher than the quantity that is being demanded. So it's going to create a surplus situation. So when you overproduce, that is what will happen. Because a surplus is created, there will be pressure on the price of the commodity to fall. So the price of the commodity will begin to fall. So as the price falls, you realize that more will be demanded. More of the commodity will be demanded. So you see that the Q and the quantity demanded will start increasing from Q0 towards Q1. Then because the price has decreased as a result of the surplus, suppliers will be discouraged and they also decrease the quantity they are supplying. So the process will continue until we get to P1, where the quantity supplied is exactly equal to quantity demanded. That is, the surplus is eliminated. When the surplus is eliminated, then the equivalent quantity becomes Q1, then the price becomes P1. So you must understand the mechanisms that produce the results. But at the end of the day, it will achieve the same effect. The price of the commodity will be lower for the consumer, but the equivalent quantity consumed will be higher. We can use mathematics, the quantitative approach to also establish the equivalent price and equivalent quantity. It's just the reverse of what we saw earlier. So we have quantity demanded, quantity supplied. The price the consumer is paying is P star. The QS is the price the supplier is receiving. In this case, anytime any amount paid by the consumer, the government has to add something to it for the producer because it's a subsidy. This time it's not a tax, so it will add something to the price the consumer has paid, which will go to the seller or the producer. So the PS in this case will now be defined as P star plus S, where the S is the subsidy per unit of output sold. So if you put this back into equation 2, then we'll get equation 3. In this case, the supply has a positive sign there. So in equilibrium, quantity supplied will be equal to quantity demanded. So you equate equation 1 to equation 3. And if you solve it for the price, you have P star, which is so this is the price the consumer is paying. You can see that the first part of the price, the first term, that's alpha minus gamma over beta plus theta. That is the price when the subsidy is 0. So that is when there is no subsidy, that will be the price the consumer will pay. But because of the subsidy, the second term has become negative. So the price the consumer is paying is now smaller. Negative you are subtracting. So it becomes smaller for the consumer to pay. So if we get this price paid by the consumer and we substitute it back into the equation 1, and then we'll be able to solve the equilibrium quantity. So to solve the equilibrium quantity, you put this equilibrium P star into equation 1, not equation 2. You put it into equation 1, and when you solve it, you get equation 5 as the equilibrium quantity. So in equilibrium, quantity supply will be the same as quantity demanded, so it doesn't matter, the result will be the same. Alternatively, we can also find the price received by the producer in equilibrium. And you must know that it is the price paid by the consumer plus the subsidy the government is going to pay. So when you do that, you get the last result, the PS is equal to alpha minus uh, minus gamma over beta plus theta minus theta s over beta plus theta plus s. When you solve this, simplify this, you'll get this result. So you can see that the government, the producer is receiving more than he got when there was no subsidy. Now he's getting more money. That is why he's increasing his production. So the subsidy has encouraged him to produce more. So you can substitute this PS into equation 2. We can substitute this into equation 2 to solve for the equilibrium quantity. So when you do that, you get this last result where Q is equal to alpha times theta plus beta times gamma all over beta plus theta plus beta Q over beta plus theta S. This last result, the result is the same as the equilibrium quantity we solved earlier. You can compare equation 5 here and the last one here, they are the same. So whether you substitute it into one or two, you get the same result. But you have to be sure, you have to be very careful as to what you are substituting. The P star is only shown in the demand function. So the equilibrium P star, you cannot substitute it directly into what equation 2. Unless for you to substitute it into equation 2, then you have to add the subsidy to it. So for the equilibrium quantity, all that you do is to substitute it back into equation 1. Then you solve it. And the examination condition, there is no need for you to solve it using both approaches because time may not be on your side to do that. What is important is that the equilibrium quantity will be the same whether you use that approach or this one. I think this should bring us to the end of our discussion on price determination.